Hey guys, welcome back to another Star video, and today will be another character discussion. We're gonna go over Dan Heng's Super Saiyan form, aka Imbibitor Lunae, but to avoid tongue twistering myself, I'm just gonna stick to Dan Heng for the sake of the video. Kicking off version 1.3 of Star we're gonna have Dan Heng's imaginary destruction version take the field, and given how integral he was to the main story of the Xianzhou and the widespread character appeal surrounding him, there's a lot of discussion over whether he's good, bad, worth pulling for, and whatnot. So far between versions 1 through 1.2, we've had Seele, Jingyuan, Silverwolf, Locha, Blade, and Kafka. Powerful units that fit into their own distinct purposes and niches, which not only established the relative power ceiling of what to expect in a 5-star character, but also helped players flesh out their character pool since the standard banner units are not reliable given their uncertainty. Dan Heng's situation is a bit tricky, in that on one hand he has a very good reason to be obtained and invested into, but can have circumstantial factors work against him, especially for those who don't have stacks of Benjamins to throw at this game every 2 weeks. So let's go through his design and gameplay and analyze the pros and cons of his kit, followed by where he sits in the current roster. When I mentioned circumstantial factors, I was primarily referring to the average player's current state, if we want to call it that. Just recently we came off of version 1.2 with Blade and Kafka, the latter being without question the most anticipated character from the very start of the game, and have likely drained many people's Jade reserves. Dan Heng will be the 5th damage-oriented character in Starville's main event banner lineup. By this point, most players have already attained at least 2 or more carry units, whether Seele Jingyuan, Seele Blade, Blade Kafka, any combination of the sort. From an economical standpoint, remember this is coming from the lens of free-to-play or maybe Dolphin players who don't have the means to or don't want to pull for every character. By now they're in a position where DPS characters are not top priority anymore, which makes Dan Heng look less appealing. While it is true we've yet to have an easily obtainable imaginary carry as well to standard banner, recently we just got a destruction unit in the form of Blade, who's currently like top 3 next to Kafka and Seele. In other words, for most players, Dan Heng at a surface level may appear to be entirely skippable, and in all honesty he is. That is, unless you've actively held off on pulling for Seele, Jingyuan, Blade, and or Kafka specifically for Dan Heng, in which case I actually believe that wasn't half bad of a call to make. The title on the thumbnail suggests he might be the new best damage dealer? So let's address that part first. Where does Super Saiyan Dan Heng stand in relation to the current quote-unquote meta? I would say he's very similar to Blade and Kafka, where they have the makings of an extremely powerful carry unit under certain conditions. Like the reason people put Blade and Kafka in S tier while Seele stands in S+ is because Seele is consistent. She doesn't have any elements in her kit that fluctuate her power level like Blade and doesn't require a very specific niche to be fulfilled for optimal damage like Kafka. However, if you really maximize either niche to the best of your ability, the Stellaron Hunters have the potential to match or even surpass Seele, at least in the AoE department. Dan Heng takes the notion of good and can be better to infinity. This character's up, like in a good way. He could potentially be the strongest character in Honkai Star Rail as we know it, but with the cost, a very heavy cost. It wouldn't be a stretch to say that he has, at present, the highest damage ceiling in the game if we're comparing the absolute peak of what can be done in the game. The only caveat is that he might be the most expensive, or rather most demanding carry in the game. Let me explain. Just like Blade, Dan Heng's gameplay revolves around empowered normal attacks. We've all had a taste of what he could do during the story trial where you can press his skill multiple times to upgrade his normal attack. How it works is that the base form is standard imaginary damage to a single enemy. Enhancing it one time increases that damage, then enhancing it again pushes the damage even further while transforming it into a blast attack, doing fragmented damage to adjacent enemies, and then finally enhancing it a 3rd time gives more damage. Pretty self-explanatory. So he effectively doesn't have a skill, as using Dracor Libre doesn't cost SP nor count as using a skill. It eats up your skill points when you attack. But it does have an extra property. Whenever using either blast variant, that is upgrade level 2 or 3, Dan Heng gets bonus crit damage. We're talking a metric ton of crit damage too, 48% of full stacks rank 10. Okay, so remember when I mentioned damage ceiling and cost. Dan Heng is without question the most skill point exhaustive character in Star Rail, like even more than Seele. Obviously, to maximize your DPS on him, you want to get as many upgrade level 3 attacks off as possible, but that means you have to eat up 3 SP per attack on Dan Heng to get the most damage. He's basically as if there was a Genshin character with an elemental burst that always dealt Eula's max damage, but had an energy cost of like 200. For reference, the most expensive elemental burst is a tie between Shogun and Miko at 90. So while Blade requires healing and Kafka requires dot damage, Dan Heng requires SP. SP is a pretty universal metric, which would have you believe he's very flexible in terms of team composition since everyone generates SP. But the question then becomes, how the hell do you keep up with that kind of demand? Skill point management is the bedrock of Star Rail's gameplay, when to use SP and which characters to use it on. The idea is, the less SP a character needs, the better, because you can allocate it to the rest of the team to have them do their jobs more comfortably. One of the reasons Blade is good is because you only have to pay 1 SP per 3 turns or something, which is awesome especially for a damage dealer. Granted, it's not mandatory to go for an upgrade level 3 on Dan Heng every single time. Even upgrade level 2 deals a pretty serious amount of damage. If we look at the numbers at rank 6, Fulgurant Leap mostly focuses on increasing the AoE splash damage over damaging the initial target, so disregarding max optimal Sweaty Gamer, Divine Spear is what you'll find yourself using against a single target more often than not if you're just trying to get the job done. However, for those trying to squeeze every little ounce of damage they can, they naturally have to go for max upgrade as often as humanly possible. That puts you in a difficult situation. Dan Heng's a carry, therefore you want to build him and 3 other supports. Supports are supposed to buff and enable the carry to do more damage. Tingyan to boost attack and damage output, Branya to boost damage and accelerate turns, Locha to heal, Silver Wolf to apply imaginary weakness, so on and so forth. If you burn all of your SP on Dan Heng's level 3 attack, you lose out on the DPS and utility buffs from your supports and vice versa. So the only way to have the best of both worlds is to make your team hyper efficient by any means necessary. The easiest way to rack up more SP is to normal attack with your other units, namely your supports, increasing their speed stat allows them to attack more often over the course of a fight, giving you more skill point gain. You can also supplement through relics, light cones, and even eidolons. For instance, if somehow you manage to procure 2 Branyas, her first eidolon has a 50% chance to refund the skill point used to activate her skill, which isn't worth breaking the bank over, but consider yourself lucky if you stumbled upon 2 copies of her. At first glance, Branya may seem like a counterintuitive choice. While she has ways to aid in skill point efficiency, refreshing Dan Heng's turn only exacerbates his SP cost. I mean, if you go super crazy malt, then yeah, Branya doubles the skill point cost if you want to use upgrade level 3 basic attacks twice. But realistically, she can help out by allowing him to use a normal attack every so often. An easier way to accelerate SP regen is through relics. Musketeer of Wildweed's 4-piece bonus increases your speed by 6%, which can alleviate the amount of speed you have to get through substats. Messenger Traversing Hackerspace is also fantastic to have, as it also gives a 6% speed bonus but for only 2 pieces, and 4 pieces give 12% speed to the entire team when using your ultimate. Sadly, you can't stack it, so you should only give the 4-piece set to 1 support. Passerby of Wandering Cloud might be a worthwhile option to equip on your healer too, as it starts you off with 4 SP instead of 3 at the beginning of a fight. Some light cones are also good for skill point regeneration. Branya's light cone can regenerate a skill point upon using the wielder's ultimate for 1 extra SP every 3 turns. Every little bit counts. You're starting to see why maximizing efficiency on Dan Heng will take a lot of effort, right? Now, in fairness, I do want to point out that he does have a way to be self-sufficient to an extent. His ultimate is a blast type attack that does imaginary damage, then grants him 2 charges of Squama Sacrosancta, god these terms, which can be substituted in place of skill points, meaning if you use your ultimate, you can do an upgrade level 3 basic attack for only 1 SP right after. So one more way you can keep his uptime consistent is to alternate between using skill points and his ultimate to leave enough in the tank for supports to also buff him. Since he's your main carry, you don't want to go energy recharge on your link rope because that's a big loss of attack power, which is where his signature weapon comes into play, not only boosting his damage a ton but giving him more energy so he can get more ultimates off. That makes Tingyan arguably his best partner, as she can supply him with energy, damage, and SP if you give her Branya's light cone, plus she's SP efficient. That's one less thing to worry about. It's also noteworthy to point out that Dan Heng's first Ascension passive regenerates 15 energy right from the get-go, and if you use his technique to first strike an enemy, he gets 1 stack of Squama Sacrosancta, so your first upgrade level 3 attack only costs 2 SP instead of 3. So thankfully you're not completely at the mercy of how much SP you can regenerate. They were considerate enough to add some quality of life concessions to his moveset. Now if you really want more efficiency, you can get his second Eidolon, making it so that every cast of his ultimate allows him to immediately follow up and gain 1 extra stack of Squama Sacrosancta for an entirely free upgrade level 3 attack right after, measurably altering the team requirements for maximum efficiency. But we've established long ago that efficiency upgrades via constellations and eidolons are nowhere near worth the hundreds of dollars it takes to pull for them, so I'd advise against it unless you're a whale. It's still very feasible to cap out your uptime on him at base. Something I appreciate about Dan Heng's kit is that he directly benefits from virtually every offensive stat in the game. Attack, crit rate, crit damage, and total damage are obviously applicable to him, but speed and energy as well. Upping your teammate's speed is a direct DPS increase to Dan Heng's kit due to more skill point recovery, and energy recharge is also important for more SP efficiency through more acquisitions of Squama Sacrosancta. Technically, speed and energy benefit all characters in a general sense, but Dan Heng is directly made more efficient from those stats. With all that being said, some of you might be asking if this is even worth it, and the answer is a resounding yes. Like I said, this character is bull. Numerically, the highest damage ceiling in the game, far exceeding what everyone else can practically do. He has so much raw power in his kit, 48% crit damage from his skill, another 24% crit damage from his Ascension 6 passive. He can get up to 60% bonus damage from his talent, or 100% bonus damage if you get E1, let alone all the supplemental buffs you get from Tingyan, Branya, Silverwolf, Pela, anyone you want. The damage potential in this guy is extraordinary. You thought Blade and Kafka were cooking, this guy cooks even harder. The difficulty lies in getting your team to that point. Fortunately, you don't need a specific team the way Kafka does. You can use your typical lineup of broken support characters, but calling him the most expensive hyper carry to set up would be an understatement. At the same time, the straightforwardness of his gameplay means he becomes extremely consistent once you do reach that point. Overall, I would say for people who care about getting the best of the best, Dan Heng's easily a must-pull. Free-to-play players who already have 2 functioning DPS units can probably skip him. Between him and Fushuen, I'd argue she's ever so slightly more beneficial to your team. Remember, supports are always more valuable than DPS in the long run, but I'm gonna pull for him. This guy looks like he could be a ton of fun. Anyways, that's gonna be it for today. Let me know your thoughts on Dan Heng's new glow up in the comments down below, whether you plan to get him or not. Aside from that, if you enjoyed the video, it would be great if you left a like and subscribed. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Vars and join my Discord server, and check out my other Honkai Star Rail videos if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.